Good afternoon. My guest this afternoon is Bridget Schroeder. Have I pronounced that correctly?
You have, yeah, Bridget Schroeder.
And this is the second episode, if that's the right word, edition,
exciting.
maybe, of my podcast, which is born of, just as a reminder to the audience, both of you, again, one of whom is almost certainly my mother, if she's being honest with me.
Is the other one your wife?
No. She's sick and tired of hearing my voice. The premise is that you're cast away on a desert island, and in order to sustain yourself on the desert island, you have chosen 4 songs, your favourite book, and a luxury item. So I've explained that again for the audience, but also for Bridget, who got the wrong end of the stick in a first conversation when I invited her onto the show, and presumed that she was actually going to die on the desert island, and therefore chose songs that were somewhat mournful and frankly miserable.
Right. I just thought, like, what would I want to be listening to as I,
as you die,
as I stared at the ocean and died?
Yeah.
I was told, though, actually, there's plenty of food and water on the island.
Well, there is if you're creative and make an effort. Yeah.
Oh.
But,
okay, so I'm still probably going to die on this island.
Judging by your original list, you would be crying so much and pondering your own death that you'd never.
No, I fixed it. Now the list is better.
Yeah,
I'm probably going to die from dance injuries.
So it's more of a celebratory tone, really, that you're being cast away on your own on a desert island for the foreseeable future.
Am I cast away? Like been voted out of somewhere else? Is that how I ended up on this island?
Well, I hadn't thought of it that way, but let's just say yes, because that makes it adds to your baggage, maybe, which is already considerable. So, Bridget, tell us a little bit about, because, obviously, there's a possibility that this might get listened to by people who don't know you.
Oh, that's true.
In which case, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you've been, just a little bit. Don't get dull, for goodness sake.
Okay. Well, it's my life story.
It's
not dull.
Right.
I grew up in Idaho, so out west in the United States, but we were transplants to Idaho. So my mother is originally from New York City, and my dad's from outside Philadelphia. So it was a small town, and there were people who never left the small town, but we always had kind of our ways to venture out. And my parents were really they thought it was important that we kind of travel and see the country and get back to what they deemed their roots. But Idaho is definitely my roots now at this point. And then I went to school in Montana for university, which is Missoula, Montana, which definitely had an influence on pretty much all the decisions I've probably made from that point, because Missoula is one of the coolest towns. It's just, a really great, beautiful place and great people. And the Montana Grizzlies are the best football team in the nation.
Where I say go Grizzlies?
Go Grizzlies, yeah. And there's actually something that you would say. No, we can't say it. Can't say it.
Don't do that.
Can't say it. But we are not fans of the Bobcats, and there's actually some Bobcat fans.
You're the first person to say that to me today. And voila, you're in Beijing.
Yeah, voila. Actually, I was in Missoula. I was the assistant manager of Fuzzy-Wig's Candy Factory. The career vista was vast.
It never leaves you.
Yeah, and my dentist was really happy when finally I was no longer going to work at the candy store.
See, I grew up in England and there weren't dentists.
Oh, that explains.
There was one, but I lived a long way away.
For the entire country?
Just, yeah.
Okay, all right.
So one of the reasons I asked you on the show is because no one else accepted, but also because in the short time I've known you, it was obviously very clear that you love music.
I do.
And I do too. And so tell us, please, when music first became part of your life, to whatever degree it did, and how, please.
So music's always been a part of my life. My mom, she was in the pep squad, or pep, I don't know, she performed at pep rallies.
It's interesting. Let me just jump in, because the first time I worked in the States, in Atlanta, I remember I was an associate principal of the high school, and someone said to me, you need to organise a pep rally. I had no idea what they were talking about. and I honestly thought they said a pet rally. So I thought everyone was supposed to bring in their dogs and
just
maybe a
parade
hamster.
them.
Yeah.
It's probably a thing somewhere.
So I got kind of 2 days into planning the pet rally before someone told me differently. Anyway, carry on.
I wish they hadn't. I wish it just really would have been the pets.
I almost certainly wouldn't be sitting here today. Which may be a good thing, I don't know.
But my parents were always into music. I mean, we had their albums always playing. And my dad was a bit of a deadhead. He also likes Irish drinking songs. Mm-hmm. And John Denver was always playing whenever we drove anywhere. Mm-hmm. And then my mom was, she's a huge Beatles fanatic, but she's also, she loves music. And I don't remember ever, like she'd be singing when making dinner, singing in the car. There was a lot of singing going on, and music was just part of our everyday life. I really got into music. I was in a children's choir mm-hmm. at church, and that's really when I started singing, I guess, semi-professionally. It worked its way into school choirs. My sisters are both pianists, pretty darn good pianists, in fact, and I took a year of piano lessons, and it turns out I cannot do more, like my hands have to do the same thing. Like I can't get them mm-hmm. to do, so piano playing, I can read music, mm-hmm. But I can like kind of play with one finger on the piano. And so we decided that maybe that excruciating year of piano lessons, it was time for me just to sing. Well,
the same experience on the flute, actually. That was the instrument that I tried to play in high school, and didn't go well.
Yeah, I remember when my sister tried to take up the trombone. Like I really, that's etched in my memory, and I feel really bad for my parents that they had to go through a year of me trying to play the piano, because a year of listening to my sister try to play the trombone. We live out, so my parents' home is out of this small town that we live in, out in the country. There's like 9 acres. And we would send my younger sister out to play her trombone to the cows. And they would actually come. It was a way to call them, as it turned out. And she had an audience every night. It was terrible sounding. Wow. But that's,
what an image.
That's more her story, I guess, than my story.
So you mentioned the Beatles, and your mum's love of the Beatles. Did that come down to you? Was that one of the groups? I mean, this is often the case in families. The Beatles have had that lasting impression on people, mostly handed down through their parents. Is that what happened in your family?
That is. In fact, I thought I was related to the Beatles for a very long time. It wasn't until I was 5 or 6 until I found out they weren't my uncles. My dad bought my mom this gigantic wall clock.
I'm guessing you weren't the sharpest child, is that
I'm just saying it was a time when like mustaches were really in, and it was like Sgt. Pepper Beatles, and they all had their mustaches. Yep. And, I was 3, 4, and I wasn't dissuaded by my mother.
Right.
Like, those are your uncles. So this giant wall clock, I'd be like,
your mother actually told them.
Those are your uncles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your therapy bill must be extraordinary.
Well, I was just like, when do I meet Uncle Ringo? Like, I haven't met him, and I was like, who's Uncle, like, which one of these is Uncle Rob? I don't understand where my uncles are. Yeah. And,
how sad.
Yeah, I found out a bit later that I'm not related to the Beatles.
At this point, I don't know whether I'm laughing with you or at you. But time
it's okay,
will
you
tell.
can laugh at me.
So the Beatles are present in your family. And
they are.
Because, I mean, obviously you've chosen one of the Beatles songs.
I have. It's
your
a song,
first
actually.
One, so go ahead and
my mom can play 2 songs on the piano. One of them is some German drinking song, maybe a theme in my family now that I'm thinking about it. But then she can also play Obla Di, Obla Da. And when my older sister, finally got far enough in her piano studies, she learned they duet. And so I have very fond memories of my sister and my mother playing this song. And because I was banished from the piano, I do the trumpet part. I do not on the trumpet, I do a vocal trumpet. That's my part.
Very good.
Yeah,
very
thank
good.
you.
I do my vocal trumpet out the side of my mouth, but maybe it's a regional difference. So let's listen to Obla Di, Obla Da by the Beatles, which is your first choice for your desert island.
Desmond has a barrow in the marketplace. Marley is the singer in a band. says to Molly, girl, I like your face. And Molly says this, that she takes him by the hand. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. La, la, then life goes on. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. La, la, then life goes on. Desmond takes a trolley to the jeweler's store, buys a 20-carat golden ring, takes it back to Molly waiting at the door, and when he gives it to her, she begins to sing. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. La, la, the life goes on. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. La, la, the life goes on. In a couple of years, they have built a home, sweet home, with a couple of kids running in the yard of Desmond and Molly Jones. Happy ever after in the marketplace. Desmond lets the children lend a hand. Molly stays at home and does her pretty face, and in the evening she's a singer with the band. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. La, la, the life goes on. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. La, la, the life goes on. In a couple of years they have built a home, sweet home, with a couple of kids running in the yard of Desmond and Molly Jones. Happy ever after in the marketplace. Desmond lets the children lend a hand. Molly stays at home and does her pretty face, and in the evening she still sings it with a band. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. La, la, the life goes on. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. La, la, the life goes on. Oh, bloody, blada.
So my family weren't musical apart from appreciating music, but I love the Beatles, always have done. And my entry point, in fact, was that song because my parents had what at the time now looks like a very sort of square, ridiculous, rare album, which was the Tijuana Brass Band plays the Beatles. And that's the only Beatles they had in the house. And that's how I got into the Beatles. But the song that, I think many children are attracted to in the first case is that song. And I think in many cases, from the way I look at it, not only does it give people access to the Beatles, but it also turns a lot of people off from the Beatles because it's a sort of, throwaway music hall type
It was actually
song.
I was reading about it. Have you done any reading on Obladi Oboda?
Back in the day, but not recently.
It has made several worst songs ever written lists. I had no idea.
Well, no, I didn't have any idea about that, but I don't like it. I mean, I like the memories of it.
Yeah.
But it's not, obviously, for me, it's not a Beatle, which is not to criticise you in the slightest, that'll come later.
Okay, that wasn't criticism.
No.
Okay,
So
all right.
I'm glad there's a Beatles choice, because, of course, they're my favourite, and a lot of other people have heard of them as well, which is good. So let's go on from that in terms of your growing up, your family, your life, etc. And tell me a little bit more about continued interest in music and who your influences were in terms of people and in terms of musicians and anything else that came next, Bridget.
Yeah, so music sort of so it was always a part of the life. And then my older sister, she's 4.5 years older than I am. She was a major influence then. I think after my mother, she had the biggest influence on my musical tastes. And it was around that time that grunge became very, very popular. And she was playing grunge all the time in her bedroom. Locked door, of course, I wasn't allowed to.
Are we talking early 90s now? Is that right?
It would have been, let's see, so 93 would have been 93. Yeah, early 90s. Yeah, it was it would be 5th, 6th grade. That I remember this. We used to get, my parents wouldn't get cable, And we used to get alternative videos on VHS. I didn't. My older sister did. And it was music videos on VHS tapes.
Desperate to say something now, but I won't. It's hugely inappropriate, but carry on.
And she would be babysitting us, and we'd watch these videos. And that's what we would watch, alternative music videos. And that's how I came to know about Soundgarden, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and had a huge influence then on the music that I would listen to throughout high school. I became much more of a punk rocker, actually. I took it to an extreme that my sister didn't, but green hair, chains, combat boots.
Did you really?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk? And which punk bands were you into?
I was really into Operation Op Ivy, and Rancid, and Dropkick Murphys, Flogging Molly, which I don't feel like they're that much of a punk. Anything on Hellcat Records, I was really into.
So
that punk music.
US punk, really?
Yeah, it was definitely.
In that you're not referencing any of the UK punk bands.
I am not. Keep in mind, I am in small town, southeast Idaho. Like my town was, like when I was growing up, there was about 6,000 people, and it's an agricultural town.
Say no more.
Yeah, so.
But Rancid couldn't be anything other than a punk band, could it? I mean, what a brilliant name. Are they still around, or have they all died of?
That's a really good question. I haven't followed up on them.
No, well, they should. Maybe the listener can.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe the next time I'm voted off this island and I'm on a new island.
Don't get ahead of yourself.
Okay. I'm thinking I'm going to survive. I'm just putting that out there.
Many people haven't.
You haven't seen me around a coconut.
Many people haven't. No, I don't rate your chances.
Inventive.
So carry on, yeah. So punk and grunge.
Right.
All the things that parents are delighted to see.
Right. They were really excited when I decided.
Green hair and chains.
Yep. Yeah. And it was final. It was my 16th or 17th birthday, and my older sister bought me a ticket. We went to Utah, of all places, to see Pearl Jam, and it was the first time I was going to get to see go to a concert without my parents. Because my first concert was Hootie and the Blowfish with my parents. And that's about as awesome as it sounds. Though I do have to say, Hootie has really come back in country music.
Hasn't he? Yeah.
I really enjoy Hootie.
Yeah.
And maybe I shouldn't have any shame about that. Yeah, Hootie and the Blowfish.
I'd have a little bit of shame. Just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to own it. I'm going to own that one. But I went to see Pearl Jam in Utah in Park City, Utah. And big mountains behind it. It was awesome. It was just such a cool experience. And one of my favorite songs from Pearl Jam, and it always makes me think of my sister, is Yellow Ledbetter.
Okay, well that's one of your choices, so let's listen to that now.
I don't wanna stay. side, on the front side of the letter, I said, I don't know whether it was the box or the bag. Oh yeah, yeah. Can you see them out on the porch? But they don't wave. I see them around the front way, yeah. And I know I don't want to stay at all. I don't want to stay. I don't want to stay. I don't want to stay. No, no.
So that was Yellow Ledbetter by Pearl Jam, and Bridget, you chose the live version. Is there any particular reason for that?
Yeah, I chose that version because it's just Eddie Vedder and Mike McCready. I love the guitar on this song, which I know heavily influenced by Jimi Hendrix. But what I love even more, and which is just iconic for me and still, is Eddie Vedder's voice. And I just think it's a gorgeous rendition of that song.
Well, that's great. I don't... I'm not a massive Pearl Jam fan, let me qualify that, in as much that I really want to love them and I admire them. And yet, when I was growing up, obviously I was significantly older than you, and I was working in my first job when Pearl Jam and Nirvana, Soundgarden, etc. were big. And I was still so much into what was coming out of the UK at that time, and still hanging on to bands like the Smiths with great affection. And, the Happy Mondays and the Stone Roses. Of course, you get the feeling that if the Stone Roses and Pearl Jam got together, they'd have a great time and be, very compatible. But I was sort of still entrenched in that. And it's only recently I came a little bit more to Pearl Jam, certainly in terms of admiration. But I did meet them.
You met Pearl Jam?
I did, yeah. When I was in Atlanta working in the international school, I went out for my birthday celebration to Nueva Laredo, Mexican restaurant on the west side of town, and there they were, voila. Oh. The night before their show in Atlanta. Very gracious people they were. They didn't sing Happy Birthday to me, but I think they're pretty saving their voices. if
Jeff Ament, their bassist, is from Montana, and I actually ate a burrito at a local burrito place in Missoula, 2 tables away.
At this point, I think you're just trying to score points.
No. We made meaningful eye contact. I'm pretty sure the eye contact was, please do not interrupt my burrito eating.
From you or from him?
It's a good question. It's an excellent question. It was more from him. I think it was
a very good question.
Yeah, I am serious about my burritos.
Yeah, well, good. That could be the name of your autobiography. Or whatever, on your tombstone.
I'm going to write that one
when
down.
When you die on the desert island, she was serious about her, if nothing else.
It's on a coconut on the island.
Excellent, good. All right, so that's Pearl Jam, and that's your first concert out in Utah. and then off to college, I imagine. So tell us about that. Tell us about how music continued to play a part in your life, please.
Yeah, so went to college in Missoula, like I've been talking about, and I suddenly was very free to enjoy the local music scene. I definitely snuck into my fair share of shows. And the beautiful thing about the music scene in Missoula, it was very, very diverse. And suddenly it wasn't just punk shows. It wasn't just garage rock. Bluegrass became important. I thought I never would like country music, and I developed an appreciation for country music. I know. It's great music to dance to.
Yeah.
It's really great. Like, especially there's this great pub, the Union Club, and they had dancing every Friday. And, like, it wasn't just, a mosh pit where I was, trying to survive. It was suddenly, like, swinging your partner. Not a square dance, I shouldn't put it that way, but suddenly it was like, oh, like, you can also do this. And I grew to appreciate country music, which is not actually anything to do with the next song that I have selected. But I just grew as a listener, and what I was listening to. Suddenly, my CD albums they were much thicker, and it was the time of Napster, so wasn't buying anything.
Yes.
It was total music
Statute
pirate.
of limitations applies.
Yes, I hope so.
On the off chance that anyone who's listening.
Yes, I pay for my Spotify $10 a month. Best thing ever.
Prove it.
It works here in China. That's how I.
See, when I moved to the US, I downloaded lots of stuff for free because I could, and then I felt awfully guilty about it and sort of deleted it all because I'm Irish Catholic as well, right? So
yeah,
that guilt never leaves you.
I do try to pay for everything now.
Music-wise, or in terms of when you go shopping in general?
Oh, just, in life in general, I do try to, it's a good life motto.
That's good of you. Well done for obeying the rules
Thank you.
And the laws. Okay, so country music and sneaking into shows.
Yeah, and still no instruments. I was singing. I got really into karaoke. That definitely happened. That was my outlet for singing. Was a good karaoke.
What was your standard? What was your go-to?
My standard is Like a Prayer.
Is it?
By Madonna.
I would never have guessed.
I even have a dance.
Right.
I'm known for this one.
It's very good. This is a radio show.
Yeah. No, I think
Dear listener, you're in good hands now.
Actually, karaoke is how I wooed my husband.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Alana Miles, Black Velvet.
Yes.
We went to a pub. There was karaoke. I sang it, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Well,
he's now in China with me.
That's right. Alana Miles has worked her magic. Channeled through you.
Yes.
We're going off script a little bit, but it's fun.
Sorry.
Because you're heading for the desert island, and you need to be equipped with those 4 songs. So let's choose another one from that time when you were.
I think bringing up Matt actually is a good point, because my next song is Fake Plastic Trees by Radiohead. I came to Radiohead pretty late. It was in college, and they were definitely around when I was listening to Pearl Jam and my punk phase. But I was introduced to them in college, and Matt was introduced to them when we started dating. And so I kind of have a double attachment to Radiohead, because I got to introduce it to someone who hadn't really listened to them before, seriously, as I like to say. And Radiohead, I think this song is this was the hardest pick for me, because I think there's just so much fantastic music, and I love listening to Radiohead's early stuff just as much as I like listening to their late stuff, because they were just a band that they're not afraid to play with their sound, and they do some really crazy stuff, and it's so much fun to listen to. And so I chose Fake Plastic Trees because it's one of those songs that is iconic for me for college, but it's also one of the first songs I think Matt and I sang together, possibly at one of these karaoke nights.
That's great. So this is Fake Plastic Trees by Radiohead.
The green plastic watering can for for a fake Chinese rubber plant and a fake plastic girl. That she bought from a rubber man in a town full of rubber plants to get rid of itself. The words around, the words around, the words around, the words around. She lives with a broken mind, a crackpot, a styrene man who just crumbles and burns. He used to do surgery for girls in the 80s, but gravity always wins. And he wears them out. He wears them out. He wears them out. She looks like the real thing. She tastes like the real thing. My fake plastic love. But I can't help the feeling. I could blow through the ceiling. But if I just stay around, and it wears me out. It wears me out. It wears me out. It wears me out. And if I could be who you wanted, if I could be who you wanted all the time, all the time.
So as someone from the UK, I've always felt that I should be a massive Radiohead fan because they stand for a lot of the stuff that greatest music from the UK has ever stood for. But I'm not. And in that, it's probably just being a little bit lazy and not spending the time to engage.
It's just a lot. I think it's sometimes is kind of a daunting band to get into.
Yeah, but I mean, all the people I am friends with who love music, who love the same music seem to be into Radiohead and I'm not, and I need to make the effort and go back and listen to a lot of their stuff.
It's a good goal, life goal.
Yes, as it ticks by in front of me.
Well, you're not on the desert island, so you'll have choices.
Not literally, no. Okay, so take us on to the next part of your life. I'm particularly interested now, Bridget, in how you ended up in teaching, and then latterly how you ended up in Beijing, because not everyone knows that story, not least me.
So I actually, I pretty much always knew I was going to be a teacher. There's the family story, the family joke is when I was 4, I looked at my grandmother and she asked me what I was going to be when I grew up. And I said, I'm going to be a teacher, Grandma, but you'll be dead by then. Yeah, it's...
Did that prophecy come to...
Delightful. No, actually, when I graduated with my teaching certificate, I received a very nice card in the mail with, $5 for ice cream, like always. And also, congratulations, I'm not dead yet. Love, Grandma.
Right.
So,
good.
yeah,
so
she remembered.
Very much alive when she wrote that.
Very much alive. And I graduated university. I didn't major in education at university. Literature. I majored in English literature because my favorite teachers were ones that had experiences, had what I considered lived a little, and that's what I was going to do before I became a teacher. As it turned out, that living a little was me living for like 2 years in Missoula before just going to get my teaching certificate. And I had big plans. I was going to be a librarian. I wanted to be a middle school librarian.
It's not too late.
I know. Actually, it's tempting every time I'm in there. It's like a siren, the library. And I was accepted into Simmons College in Boston for information science and was ready to go. And I had met this guy in my education classes by the name of Matt Schroeder, because up until this point I was Bridget Riley. And Matt Schroeder threw it all out there and said, well, why don't you stay and give us a chance? And really...
Shortly after the Black Velvet rendition, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was, how can you resist Black Velvet?
Absolutely right.
And I decided, okay, I'll give teaching a chance for a while. Like, I'll put the library on hold. And I student taught in 8th grade English class. Actually, my mentor teacher was my 8th grade English teacher, which was a really cool experience to have. She definitely remembered me from middle school and liked to bring up my most awkward moments when possible. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved working with kids. I knew I was going to. And it was fantastic. And Matt and I got married, and we moved to Boise, and we're teaching in the Boise area, so across the state. And then we got married. And we were 6 years in the States, and we had actually gone to Vienna to learn German for our summer break.
Did that work?
Matt is actually pretty good. He's pretty good. I'm not bad. I took 2 years at university.
Right.
I can order at a restaurant. This is a theme in my life as well.
If there was a German person on the desert island, you wouldn't be able to communicate too well in the first
I'd be
instance.
okay. I could tell them I'm sorry.
They would be likely to be dead. They would have to...
I mean, if there was something wrong with them,
what for?
Like, I can say, excuse me.
Because it's the Irish Catholic guild.
This is my guild.
To everyone.
Es tut mir leid. Es tut mir leid. Well, my grandparents came from Germany, so my mom speaks fluent. Like, that's what she speaks.
What's your mum's maiden name?
Hartmann.
Okay, that's not German, is it?
2 N's at the end. Definitely German. My aunts and uncles all speak German, and as does my mom, and so I wanted to do that as well. So that's that's the German.
So you're in Vienna for
Yeah, we're in Vienna for the summer, and we go on a biking tour of the Danube, but you stop at the wineries along the way.
So the bike gets a bit wobbly after a while.
It is. It's hard to get on and off a bike, especially when you're buying the bottles and putting them in your basket.
It's a balance question.
It's a lot. It's a lot of work. I didn't think about that. But who was on that tour but a bachelor party of international school teachers from
messy.
the school there in Vienna, one of the schools. And we'd never heard of international school teaching. And we got home that from Vienna, and we just kind of were like, well, let's just see what.
Did they talk about unit planning
What's
at that
out
stage?
there?
Were they first-
I mean, that's what sold me.
Were they
was-
doing some at the time?
That was all they were talking about
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
you know, the building their curriculum.
Hence your love of curriculum.
That's where my passion came from
Makes
on
total
the
sense
Danube. There's a song about that, I'm
Of
sure.
course, sure if there isn't, there should be.
But yeah, we came home, we looked into, like, I didn't even know how, like, I was like, there's this thing called Search Associates.
Yes.
And
I've just got to go back. I mean, you're right. Track 1 of the new album, Unit Plans on the Danube.
right?
We're onto something, I think.
It's a great.
So Search Associates.
I mean, if you want to send me to an R&D, I'll just sit and I'll
There's
just
many
kind of.
places I want to send you, Bridget.
Desert Island.
for one.
Yeah, I keep hearing that. But we signed up with Search. We kind of pulled the gun a little late in the hiring process, but a school contacted us in February in Thailand, American Pacific International School, and we were going to Chiang Mai. It was kind of a
I'm not
whirl.
mistaken, though. It's not on the Pacific, is it, Chiang Mai?
No.
So how does that come into play?
No, it's very landlocked.
Geography was not part of the curriculum, I imagine.
No, but you know, after I was there, it was definitely
Absolutely.
we were standards based. But the school APIS had another name before.
A better name, maybe.
I have no idea what it was, but the marketing wise, they decided they needed to be American Pacific. That was a decision before I was there.
Yeah, not one you would have made yourself, I'm sure.
Yeah,
You were there for a couple of years, is that right?
2 years. We were there for 2 years. It was a boarding school. It was the most beautiful campus I've ever seen. It was up in the jungles, about 45 minutes outside of
Second
Chiang
most
Mai.
beautiful campus you've ever seen.
Excuse me. You're absolutely right. I apologize.
On message, be on message.
The jungle here is gorgeous. So lush.
The Shunyi Jungle. Track 3 or track 2.
This album's gonna be great.
Fabulous.
And we did 2 years there and went to Bangkok to the job fair. We actually did a job fair this time, and
good.
that's where we met the ISB crew.
And it's been here a few years now, right?
This is our third year.
Third year.
Yep.
Well, good. So that keeps us up to date with the teaching career and how
Yes.
you both ended up here. I'm
Yeah.
very glad you did. And let's go back to the music because the time is nearly upon us where you have to be cast away.
Oh,
So we
okay.
need your 4th song, please, Bridget.
All right. So my 4th song is Graceland by Paul Simon. And it doesn't fit into the chronology. It wasn't like I was listening to this on, in the middle of the jungle in Thailand. This comes from the fact that if there's anything I love to do, it's travel. And this album is what we listen to, Matt and I listen to when we were on any sort of road trip. We put in Graceland. I'm pretty sure both of us can sing every single word on the album. But I also have really fond memories because when this album came out, I was 4 or 5, and Paul Simon appeared on Sesame Street with his backing choir. And I still remember them dancing and singing, I believe it was Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes. And
think
I
you're
thought
right.
that was pretty cool.
Well, let's listen to Graceland by Paul Simon.
The Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar. I am following the river down the highway through the cradle of the Civil War. I'm going to Graceland, Graceland, to Memphis, Tennessee. I'm going to Graceland. Poor boys and pilgrims with families, and we are going to Graceland. And my traveling companion is 9 years old. He is the child of my first marriage. But I've reason to believe we both will be received in Graceland. back to tell me she's gone. As if I didn't know that, as if I didn't know my own bed. As if I'd never noticed the way she brushed her hair from her forehead. And she said, losing love is like a window in your heart. Everybody sees you're blown apart. Everybody sees the wind blow. I'm going to Graceland, Memphis, Tennessee. I'm going to Graceland. Poor boys and pilgrims with families, and we are going to Graceland. Am I traveling in bags or ghosts in empty sockets? I'm looking at ghosts and empties. But I've reason to believe we all will be received in Graceland. There is a girl in New York City who calls herself the human trampoline. Sometimes when I'm falling, flying, or tumbling in turmoil, I say, whoa, so this is what she means. She means we're bouncing into Graceland. And I see losing love is like a window in your heart. Well, everybody sees you're blown apart. Everybody feels the wind blow. Ooh, in Graceland, in Graceland. I'm going to Graceland. For reasons I cannot explain, there's some part of me who wants to see Graceland. And I may be obliged to defend every love, every ending, or maybe there's no obligations now. Maybe I have a reason to believe we all will be received in Graceland. Oh, in Graceland, in Graceland, in Graceland. I'm going to Graceland.
So one of the things I've enjoyed most about today, but also my first attempt at this last time with Breen, is that Breen's slightly older than me, and I'm older than you, clearly. And yet,
I wasn't
the
gonna
musical
say
tastes are, I mean, not exactly the same, but obviously some songs and some artists are very important to us both. But what I find interesting is again, not only are we from different places and we come together a little bit around some of these songs and artists, but the point in time where I first came familiar with that song and very fond of that song and that album, and yet there you were growing up in a different part of the world, a very different age, accessing it, and it's as dear to you as it is dear to me. I just find that very interesting in these conversations with people
Yeah, this is
from
definitely
different parts of the world.
definitely one of those
Different ages.
albums that my mom would want to. She does this thing where she's cooking and she'll be like, "Oh, dance with me, darling," and
Right.
then this is one of those albums that all of a sudden you're dancing
Right,
with,
it's
with
reassuring.
Mom.
She doesn't say that to me.
I don't know. You haven't been around
Well,
at dinner
I mean,
time.
the time will come. But I remember exactly where I was when I bought that album, and I had a gap year between school and college, and I was working in London, and I had a little bit of money, so I spent it irresponsibly,
As you should.
do. And I went into a big record store on Oxford Street, and I had no idea about the album, and I only remember Paul Simon from yesteryear, as it were. But I loved the album cover, so I bought it. The other album I bought that day, on the other end of the spectrum, was Rum, Sodomy and the Lash by the Pogues. And I love the Pogues. So I went home with both of those albums. Couldn't be any different. But Graceland has become a real favourite of mine. And in my last year in Atlanta, which was 2014, I had a great privilege of going to a very small, intimate audience with Paul Simon in the church on the campus of Emory University.
Wow.
with a couple of friends, with Karen, my wife, and he spoke about his life in song, and he spoke about different albums, different times, and what they meant to him at the time, and he played his guitar, and he played snippets of songs. He didn't play all the way through, but one of the songs he played was Graceland, and it was magic sitting close and hearing it. And hearing his narrative around it. It was one of those moments to just never forget, real privilege of being up close to an artist like that. And the other thing that I love about that song in particular is the reference to the national guitar. Because I didn't know what a national guitar was. When I heard about it and found out what it was, it's now my favourite instrument to listen to. And it takes you off on sort of YouTube videos and
Right.
to see, people who've played national guitars well. And that's great. But also, I drove down the Mississippi Delta with Karen, my wife, in her Toyota years ago, and it was after that song came out. But I remember we were doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. We would sing along to that album, and it's strange, isn't it, that it talks about the Mississippi Delta, and yet at the same time it's such a huge African influence that has lasted and given hundreds of millions of people probably access to African music, which they wouldn't have otherwise have done. So a really groundbreaking album in more ways than one, and sparks its share of controversy. So I'm glad you chose that, and I've spoken too long.
No.
So we're about to get cast. You're about to get cast. Well, I'm not, because otherwise I won't be able to do the show next week.
I don't know. Maybe the voters will vote you onto the island.
I think they already have. A long time ago, more ways than one. And not just because of the radio show. So what you take the 4 records with you, obviously, and your favourite book. So tell us about your favourite book, please, Bridget, and why.
This was the whole process was very difficult for me.
Good.
I was an English literature major, and if there's anything besides music that was just a vital part of our lives growing up, it was books. We have just massive amounts of books. My dad and my mom are voracious readers, and my dad's genre is fantasy, and I got really into the Lord of the Rings, and so the book I'm bringing is the Lord of the Rings. And I know some people are going to be like, that's cheating because there's 3 books. But when I read The Lord of the Rings for the first time, I had no idea it was 3. It was this giant volume. I was very proud of myself that I made it through this giant book. And it's just the world building and the characters, and it's just a fantastic story. And, it just fed my love of fantasy and that genre. And it's just, I still love it.
Dare I ask if the films spoiled it for you or enhanced it?
I think enhanced it. I do. I think it was one of those. I think the films are great movies, and they're so much fun, and it made me want to go back and read. And it was that part's not in there, and it's that those. I thought that Peter Jackson did a fantastic job with it. They're actually going to do Amazon. It's going to put on a show. They're going to make it a series on TV now. I don't know. Jury's out.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
risky. That's risky. That could be over egging the pudding, as they say where I come from.
I don't know what that means.
Well, just think about it. On the desert island, plenty of time.
I would have to know how to make pudding probably to understand.
No? I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
And so you were also allowed a luxury item, because I'm that generous.
Thank you.
I wouldn't be totally miserable.
Thank you.
On there. So you got your 4 songs in The Lord of the Rings, which is 3 books in one, which is cheating, but it's
not.
okay.
It's not volumes. I think is.
Yeah, that's the way around it. And so, what have you chosen as your luxury item to help you on that miserable existence?
Well, I feel like you're not telling people that you took the jetpack away from me, that I couldn't have the jetpack.
You can't have a jetpack. No, that'd be ridiculous.
I mean, it's a low flying. It wouldn't. Maybe I just wanted a jetpack to zoom around the island.
Well, I think you might take advantage of it, frankly. I'm not sure you're entirely
I feel
trustworthy.
like maybe you're making a judgment call on my character.
That's right.
All right. So once you took the jetpack away, and I realized I didn't need the water purifier because there's going to be plenty of drinking water.
Who told you that?
Okay.
No, there will be, yeah.
I just feel like I'm being misled.
There will be.
I brought the Easy Breather pillow. I brought it's a $120
Tell the listener
pillow.
about a little bit more about it, apart from the cost.
It's stuffed with memory foam. I'm a side sleeper, so you need
That would have been my guess.
certain amount of support.
That's your nickname,
And
by
the
the way.
greatest thing with the Easy Breather is you can pull out the fill, so it's actually at your level of fluffiness. I don't know what that's
Comfort.
not what they call it, but it's really well designed. It's durable. That memory foam
Is it Swedish?
I have no idea. It's according to the website, it's the
They're on
number
top of
one
it, aren't they?
selling pillow on the internet.
On the
According to its website.
I thought you were about to say the world, but I'll settle for the internet.
Yeah, I have no idea. But if there's anything that I would want with me, it would be a pillow. So I can prop myself up nicely
Multi-purpose.
when I am listening to these songs.
And reading a book.
So yes, the pillow. Having 7 to 8 hours of sleep is a principle that I live my life on, and maybe naps. That
Yeah.
might also be.
Yeah. Well, but your time will be your own on the desert island,
I look forward to that.
which is a blessing and a curse. Mostly a curse, I think. What I don't want you to do is imagine that this is going to be pleasant.
You keep saying that, but you don't. Maybe the island will be quite nice.
And maybe not. Anyway, Bridget, thanks very much for participating in this
You're
folly.
quite welcome.
It's folly. I've enjoyed it very much indeed, and thank you for your songs and your book and your luxury item, which was the pillow.
The Easy Breather.
How do you
Easy
think you
Breather.
do on a desert island?
I did jungle survival when I was in Thailand, so I can make lots of things out of jungle vegetation. But let's just be honest, I am a ginger, and
Your words,
I'm
not
gonna
mine.
burn. I'm gonna burn a lot, and that will be painful. And I don't do well when I get overheated, and so also I don't do well when I'm hangry.
Oof.
There's a lot. I'm not sure I'm going to make it.
Okay,
But at least
all right.
I'm going to have these things to
Well,
just hold to myself.
The good news is, in your case, that it's just a metaphor. So there'll be no real desert island unless there's something in your future which I'm not aware of. So thanks very much for participating. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully, if anyone does listen, they'll know more about you and your passions in music and literature. And just really appreciate your time. Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You're listening to DJ Teach on
It was
Features Pop.
May I have your attention, please?
awesome.
May I have your attention,
For those of you who are listening, the buses are leaving.
Where? Even where?
Oh, they're not. Someone's lost. We're all lost
Someone's lost.
Please.
to one degree or another.
You are a person.
Cut.
Yeah.
You're going to read the train.
They're going to say it in Chinese.
Ethan
Press pause.
grade 3,